Hi, Tara Tenney here, Mrs. Tenney. We are going to do a close reading of the poem, I Hear America Singing. This was written by Walt Whitman in 1860. Now, I am going to need to close my video because I do have a lot of language that I have prepared to share with you, and my video is not able to be made smaller or bigger. So we're going to remove the video for now, and then we'll bring it back on at the end. So the clear learning objective for this exercise is I can develop a well-crafted argument on the text thematics as I perform a close reading through the theoretical criticism lenses of reader's response, historical biographical criticism, formalism, and thematic criticism. 2, identify and explore the significance of repeating sounds, words, phrases, or ideas. Analyze the significance of diction, positive and negative connotation and/or nuance of meaning. And identify and explore the significance of symbolism and allusion. And compile a list of topics found in the poem that a theme could be authored. So I thought it would be helpful to define the different theoretical criticism lenses that we are going to be taking together today. The first is reader's response. Reader's response is defined as a criticism rooted in the belief that a reader's reaction to or interpretation of a text is a valuable source of critical study. A historical criticism is the approach that assumes that the significance of a particular piece of literature is inextricably linked to its historical context. Whereas the formalist criticism, this approach analyzes and interprets different features of the texts, like grammar or syntax, literary devices, meter if there is, meter and trope, figurative language, and its impact and effect. Thematic criticism is the overall, let's think about the tools that the author used so that we can develop an overall theme of the text. So the first approach, reader's response. Your initial reaction to the text is valuable to the study. Keep in mind, our overall goal is to develop evidence or compile evidence to draft an crafted argument on the text themes. So keep that in mind as we're going along. But this first approach is reader's response. I want you to jot down in your notes your thoughts and impressions, and I want you to label it as your first reading. Title it, your notes for this first reading, First Response from the Theoretical Criticism Lens of Reader's Response. The reason why we're labeling our different responses is it's interesting to compare your first response notes to the thoughts after we've completed this whole exercise of this close reading. Here's the poem. I hear America singing, the varied carols I hear, those mechanics, each one singing his as it should be blithe and strong, the carpenter singing his as he measures his plank or beam, the mason singing his as he makes ready for work or leaves off work, the boatman singing what belongs to him in his boat, the deckhand singing on the steamboat deck, the shoemaker singing as he sits on the bench, the hatter's singing as he stands, the woodcutter's song, the plowboy's on his way to the morning, or at noon, intermission, or at sundown, the delicious singing of the mother, or of the young wife at work, or of the girl sewing and washing, each singing what belongs to him or her, and to none else. The day what belongs to the day, at night the party of young fellows, robust, friendly, singing with open mouths, their song of melodious songs. So, notes on our first reading, our reader's response, our knee jerk reaction. What came to mind? Perhaps you wrote some down? Here's what I jotted down. Singing is obviously repeated significantly in this poem. I noticed that repetition. My first response, I noticed that the speaker highlighted blue collar. There's a blue collar workforce focus. I noticed there was no rhyme scheme. It's written in free verse. It's written in first person. The speaker seems to have a positive tone, which created a peaceful mood. So these are my first response, reader's response notes. Yours might look a little different, and that's okay. So the second approach that we're going to take is the historical biographical criticism. Now remember, this approach assumes that the significance of a particular piece of literature is linked to its historical context. Keep in mind our overall goal, which is to provide strong evidence to develop a well-crafted argument of the text's thematics. This go around, I want you to jot down your thoughts and impressions during the poem's second reading. Title these notes, Second Response, from the theoretical criticism lens of historical biographical criticism. You can pause the video to make those notes. So, Walt Whitman, who is this author? Who is this poet? Here's a profound picture of this man, this poet. He was born in 1819 to Walter Whitman and his mother, Louisa Van Velsor, I hope I'm saying that right, in the West Hills, New York. Soon after his birth, his family moved to Brooklyn, where his father worked as a carpenter. Now, details of this poet's life, Walt's life. He was largely a self-taught person. He did have to leave school at an early age of 11 to support his family, and that was pretty customary back in this time. He worked as a male nurse in New York in an army hospital during the American Civil War. So that probably had a profound impact on him, seeing that human suffering. He is buried in a tomb that he built and designed for himself. That's a significant, fun piece of information. And he did publish 795 copies of the first edition of his famous Leaves of Grass in 1885. This remains a classic in the literary world. Now, I Hear America Singing. Remember, it was published in 1860. This is significant to when we are taking this historical approach. Can you remember what was going on in America in 1860? The Civil War. Just a brief history review. Civil War was conflict over issues of how much control the federal government should have over the states. Industrialization, trade, and especially slavery had increased tension between the North and the Southern states. The Northern states, they were known as the Confederate States of America, CSA, and they were referred to as the Union, also known as the Northern States. The worldview of the Northern States, the majority of the people of the Union believed that the enslavement of men, women, and children should be outlawed in America. That was their worldview. They wanted to end this slavery. Now, the Southern states, they seceded from the Confederate States of America, and they were eventually called the Confederacy, also known as the Southern States. The Southern States' worldview, they wanted their independence. They desired to preserve their way of life, which included slavery. They wanted to secure state rights against the centralization of government control. It seemed that they feared uh, the the Confederate States becoming a monarchy. And here's a map. The purple's Confederate, the north is the northern, or the blue is the northern states. Okay, just a kind of a visual of the division of the states at that time. And this is where our poet resided at the time of when this poem was authored. Okay, here's another photo of our poet. And many critics have said that Whitman's attitudes about race have been described as unstable and inconsistent. He did not always side with the abolitionists, yet it was clear that he celebrated human dignity. So this second approach, the historical biographical criticism, jot down your thoughts and impressions during the poem's second reading on this, focusing on this background that you were just given. Title your notes, Second Response from the Theoretical Criticism Lens of Historical Biographical Criticism. You can pause the video to title your notes that. Second reading of the poem. I hear America singing, the very carols I hear, those of mechanics, each one singing his as it should be, blithe and strong, the carpenter singing his as he measures his plank or beam, the mason singing his as he makes ready for work or leaves off work, the boatman singing what belongs to him in his boat, the deckhand singing on the steamboat deck, the shoemaker singing as he sits on his bench, the hatter singing as he stands, the woodcutter's song, the plowboy's on his way in the morning or at the noon intermission or at sundown, the delicious singing of a mother or of a young wife at work, or of the girl sewing or washing, each singing what belongs to him or her and to none else. The day what belongs to the day. At night, the party of young fellows, robust, friendly, singing with open mouths their songs of melodious songs. So, notes on the second reading. What has changed now that you've been provided this historical context? These are some of my notes. Singing. Could this idea of singing be symbolic? We'll explore that more. Still, the blue collar focus. Did you have some further insights having the historical context? It's written in free verse. Could this point to an idea of freedom, this idea of that's rolling around in the Americans' minds at this time? Now, written in first person with the positive tone, what can be inferred about the poet's worldview given this positive tone and peaceful mood that has been created with the author's diction? Maybe pause the video and jot some ideas down in your notes. So the third approach is the formalism criticism. Now remember, this approach analyzes, interprets, and evaluates the inherent features of a text, which include grammar, syntax, and literary devices. Once again, keep in mind that our overall goal when we are analyzing this poem from these different approaches is for you to gather this strong evidence to develop an argument on the poem's thematics. So I think it's helpful to review maybe a few literary device definitions for you before we read this third time. Repetition. The use of repetitive words, ideas, or phrases to emphasize a point and to make the written piece easier to follow. And then there's diction, which is the choice of words and phrases in a speech. What is the significance, the nuance of meaning, positive or negative connotation? Symbolism. Symbolism is the use of a person, object, event, action, or image to represent an idea. Now, we've had a repeating idea of singing, this action of singing. What idea could the author be trying to portray through this act of singing? What might it be symbolic of? And then allusion, a brief or indirect reference to something with historical, cultural, literary, or political significance to invoke the ideas or emotions associated with that original source. Do you identify an allusion in this poem, I Hear America Singing? So, this third approach, the formalist criticism, I want you to annotate the poem during the poem's third reading. You're going to be looking for literary devices. You're going to circle repetitions. You're going to underline diction that sticks out to you that you may feel has some significance. Maybe state that significance in the margin. I hear America singing, the very carols I hear. Those of mechanics, each one singing his, as it should be blithe and strong. The carpenter singing his as he measures his plank or beam. The mason singing his as he makes ready for work or leaves off work. The boatman singing what belongs to him in his boat. The deckhand singing on the steamboat deck. The shoemaker singing as he sits on his bench. The hatter singing as he stands. The woodcutter's song, the plow boy's on his way to in the morning, or at noon in intermission or at sundown. The delicious singing of a mother, or of the young wife at work, or of the girl sewing or washing, each singing what belongs to him or her and to none else. The day what belongs to the day. At night the party of young fellows, robust and friendly, singing with open mouths their song of melodious songs. So the annotations here that I've organized, I've recognizing this repetition of singing. Maybe count how many times song is referred to in this poem. I also thought that these words were significant. Let's focus on melodious. If all of these different walks of life and all of these different people working in their industries, they're different industries, but they have a melody, what might that symbolize? Diversity, unity in diversity? I found it interesting that the author used this word delicious to describe the type of song when referring to a female's job. What might that be indicating? There was no descriptive word to describe all these different songs that were male working songs. I found it interesting that the author incorporated language to communicate that these songs belong, it is the property of these males and females, and no one else's property, nobody but theirs. What might he be communicating or wanting to communicate through that use of diction? Here's it again, belongs to. Okay. And then I found its significance, the title in the first line of the poem, I Hear America Singing. America, this could be alluding to the historical significance, the political significance of the American land being a nation wherein refugees have come, and where refugees who are suffering and do not have property and belonging, do not have the right to be in their industry, to pursue that happiness. They come, they hear America's song, that America has that, and they hear that song, and therefore they come to America to enjoy this delicious song. Perhaps that's an illusion. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I indicated that there were 12 industries mentioned, 15 references to singing. So, this fourth approach, the thematic criticism, remember, it is to think about the tools that help derive the theme or the central focus of the text, identify the primary motifs of the text. Okay, so I want to compile a list of topics that are found in the poem. Just topics, not full sentence, one word or a phrase topic. Harmonious diversity, is that fair? Would you agree that this is a topic found in this poem, I Hear America Singing? What about personal property? Joy in the journey? American dream or the American ideal? Pause the video and jot down some topics that you identify. Oh, I also had pursuit of happiness, another topic that I identified in this poem. So here's a thesis, an argument that I authored on the sole topic of the American dream. Walt Whitman conveys the right of all to pursue happiness, void of government overreach and tyranny, is the song of every living soul and the miraculous harmony of the American ideal. Now, you can write a thesis statement or an argument on any of the topics that you have listed. But remember, your burden as an analytical critic is to prove that Walt Whitman did indeed convey your authored theme in the text. So keep in mind that you'll have to have strong textual evidence and an explanation to back your claim that Walt Whitman indeed taught that theme that you have authored. I hope you have enjoyed this close reading of the poem I Hear America Singing. Here are the two references that I pulled from in organizing this exercise for you. Thank you so much.